There's a moment that happens to a lot of people, but almost no one talks about it. You finally get the raise, or the promotion, or the new job with the bigger salary. You look at the offer letter and think, this is it. This is the turning point. For a few weeks, maybe even a few months, everything feels lighter. You're not checking your bank balance as often. You're not hesitating before ordering food. You feel ahead. And then slowly, almost invisibly, that feeling fades. The stress creeps back in. The money feels tight again. The relief you thought would last starts to feel temporary. And you're left wondering, how am I earning more than ever and still feeling behind? If that sounds familiar, I want you to know something first. You're not bad with money, and you're definitely not alone. Most people grow up believing that income is the solution to financial stress. If you're struggling, you just need to earn more. If you're anxious about bills, you need a better job. If you feel stuck, the answer must be a bigger paycheck. It sounds logical. More money equals fewer problems. But here's what most people don't realize. Money doesn't just solve problems, it also expands them. When your income increases, your lifestyle doesn't stay frozen in time. Your expectations change, your standards shift, your normal quietly rises. And before you even notice, the extra money you thought would create breathing room has already been absorbed. This isn't about being irresponsible, it's about psychology. When we earn more, we don't just upgrade our bank accounts, we upgrade our identity. Maybe you move to a slightly nicer apartment because you can afford it now. Maybe you lease a car that feels more appropriate for your position. Maybe you start saying yes to dinners, trips, subscriptions, and conveniences that once felt optional. None of these decisions are extreme. In fact, they feel reasonable, logical, even deserved. But here's the catch. Every upgrade comes with a recurring cost. And recurring costs are powerful because they feel permanent. Let's say you get a raise from $60,000 to $75,000. That's significant. It feels like progress. But if your rent increases by a few $100s, your car payment goes up, your insurance adjusts, your lifestyle expands just a little. That $15,000 difference starts shrinking quickly, not because you're reckless, but because your baseline moved. Psychologists call this hedonic adaptation. It's the tendency to return to a stable level of happiness after positive or negative changes. You get used to the new salary, the new apartment, the upgraded life. What once felt like abundance becomes normal, and normal rarely feels exciting. There's another layer to this that's harder to see. When you earn more, the pressure to maintain that income increases. If your lifestyle is built around your current salary, losing it becomes more frightening. You're no longer just protecting your paycheck. You're protecting your rent, your car, your subscriptions, your social identity, your sense of stability. So instead of feeling freer with more income, you might feel more trapped. You can't easily walk away from a stressful job because the financial commitments are heavier. You can't experiment with a lower paying opportunity because the margin is thinner than you thought. You're earning more, but your flexibility hasn't improved, and flexibility, more than income, is often what creates peace of mind. This is where a lot of frustration begins. You might look at your life and think, I've done everything right. I studied, I worked hard, I climbed. Why does it still feel tight? The answer usually isn't about effort, it's about structure. Income is only one side of the equation. The other side is behavior. And behavior is shaped by emotion, habit, and environment far more than logic. For example, think about stress spending. When work becomes more demanding, it's easy to justify small comforts. Better food, faster delivery, a weekend getaway, a small online purchase to treat yourself. Individually, these choices don't look dangerous, but they often increase as income increases because the psychological barrier feels lower. You're not spending beyond your means, technically. You're spending within a larger container. And yet the container fills up just as quickly. There's also social pressure. When you earn more, your social circle may shift, or your existing circle may expect more from you. You might feel subtle pressure to match the lifestyle of colleagues or friends who are in similar positions. No one says it directly, but you feel it. The vacations, the restaurants, the schools, the neighborhoods. Money becomes less about survival and more about comparison. And comparison is expensive. What makes this even more complicated is that earning more can temporarily mask deeper financial weaknesses. If you never built the habit of tracking expenses, a higher income can hide that. If you never learned how to plan ahead for irregular costs, the extra cushion absorbs the surprise for a while. If you never created an emergency buffer, the bigger paycheck reduces the urgency, but the underlying patterns remain unchanged. And patterns, not paychecks, determine long-term outcomes. There's a simple thought experiment I like to use. Imagine two people earning the same salary. One increases their spending every time their income rises. The other keeps their core lifestyle relatively stable and allows the gap between income and expenses to widen over time. 10 years later, their incomes might be similar, but their stress levels, options, and financial flexibility will look very different. The difference isn't about talent, it's about intentionality. This is the turning point most people miss. The real power of earning more isn't in what you can buy, it's in what you can choose not to buy. It's in the space between what you make and what you spend. That space is quiet. It doesn't show up on social media. It doesn't look impressive from the outside, but it's where security grows. When you start to see income as fuel rather than identity, something shifts. You stop asking, well, what can I upgrade now? And you start asking, what can I strengthen? Instead of immediately expanding your lifestyle, you might build a stronger emergency buffer, not because you're fearful, but because you value calm. Instead of increasing fixed expenses, you might allow your investments to quietly compound, not for status, but for future flexibility. Compound growth is interesting because it's slow at first, almost boring. In the early years, the progress doesn't look dramatic. The numbers don't feel life-changing, but over time, the curve bends, the growth accelerates, and what once felt small becomes meaningful. The same is true for habits. Small gaps between income and spending, maintained consistently, create options. Options reduce anxiety. Reduced anxiety improves decision-making. It becomes a positive cycle instead of a reactive one. This doesn't mean you shouldn't enjoy the fruits of your work. That's not the point. The point is awareness. When you earn more, pause before expanding. Give yourself time to feel the raise without immediately allocating it. Let the new income settle. Observe how quickly your mind wants to normalize it. You might decide to upgrade something meaningful. That's fine, but let it be deliberate, not automatic. Another practical shift is separating fixed upgrades from flexible ones. Increasing rent or taking on a larger car payment locks in future pressure. Spending a bit more on occasional experiences keeps your baseline stable. One creates rigidity, the other preserves choice. You can also experiment with a simple rule. Whenever your income increases, commit a portion of that increase to future stability before lifestyle adjustments. It doesn't have to be extreme. Even a modest percentage redirected towards savings, investing, or debt reduction creates a widening gap over time. The key is that the gap grows, because that gap is what eventually gives you the ability to say no to situations that drain you. It gives you breathing room when life becomes unpredictable. It gives you the quiet confidence that your finances aren't fragile. And fragility is often what keeps people feeling stuck, not the size of their paycheck. There's something else worth acknowledging. Sometimes the desire to earn more isn't really about money. It's about relief. Relief from stress. Relief from comparison. Relief from the feeling of not being enough. But income alone can't fix those emotional drivers. If stress spending is your coping mechanism at $60,000, it will likely still be there at $90,000. If comparison fuels your decisions now, a bigger paycheck may simply raise the bar of who you compare yourself to. The external number changes, the internal patterns remain, and that's why earning more doesn't automatically fix money problems. It amplifies who you already are. If you're thoughtful and intentional, it accelerates progress. If you're reactive and stressed, it accelerates complexity. The good news is that patterns can change, not overnight, not perfectly, but gradually. You can start noticing where your money goes when you're tired, when you're bored, when you're celebrating. You can observe how your spending shifts after a raise. You can build small pauses into financial decisions instead of responding instantly. That awareness alone changes outcomes. And here's the reassuring part. If you're earning more and still feeling pressure, it doesn't mean you've failed. It means you've reached the part of the journey where income is no longer the main variable. Now it's about alignment. Alignment between what you earn, what you spend, and what actually matters to you. Sometimes the most powerful financial move isn't chasing the next salary bump. It's stabilizing the foundation beneath the current one, because stability isn't flashy, but it's freeing. When your expenses are intentionally chosen, when your lifestyle doesn't demand every dollar you make, when you know you could handle an unexpected setback without panic, something inside you softens. You stop feeling like you're running just to stay in place. You start feeling steady. And steady may not sound exciting, but it feels peaceful. Earning more can absolutely be helpful. It can accelerate goals. It can reduce certain pressures. But it's not the full solution. The full solution is awareness, structure, and restraint where it counts. Progress doesn't come from how fast your income grows. It comes from how thoughtfully you let your life grow around it. So if you're in that strange place where your salary has increased, but your stress hasn't disappeared, take a breath. Nothing is wrong with you. You're just discovering that money is a tool, not a cure. And tools only work when we use them intentionally. Start small. Notice patterns. Protect the gap between what you earn and what you need. Let that gap grow quietly over time. You don't have to overhaul your life. You don't have to deny yourself everything enjoyable. Just aim for steady progress instead of constant expansion. Because in the long run, calm beats impressive, and sustainable progress beats dramatic change. You're not behind. You're just learning how the system really works. And once you see it clearly, you can move through it with far less anxiety and far more control.